So today it is the first session of block 2, that is on social change of core socio-cultural system. Now, last previous session, we have looked into the basic of that society. And if you link back to our the last two courses, we have understanding that now this is one of the important pillars or dimensions of sustainable development. Uh, and there is a close relation between the interaction between this social pillars and those of environment and pillars, right? So in this block, you are going to look into three important units. A minute. Important unit, that's first unit, it will talk on resource and society. Unit 2, we will talk on social and cultural continuity, followed by environmentalism, impact of development. The overall objective of this particular block of this core socio-cultural system is that in this block, the name itself indicates the social change. We have to understand the changes in society since our human civilization, how we started, the evolution from hunter-gatherer to the present time. So in these units, for example, unit in resource and society, uh, you will find out in study material there are some basic concept on resources with reference to social structures and with reference to how the uh, evolution and growth of human civilization is taking place, and that was discussed from the perspective of how we are utilizing the resources. So then, when you are trying to learn all those concepts of resource and society relation, you will find out that how human started domestication, the process of domestication, then agriculture, and when we started to practice agriculture, and we first the first way of the first method of agriculture which we follow was shifting cultivation. Then that is followed by wet cultivation. When we follow the wet cultivation, as we call is sometimes we call as growth of agriculture, or that is permanent agriculture. Then the growth of state started, means talk about institution instead, how society started to stabilize, and they evolve among that process of interaction. Then in other side, you will find out the basic of pastoralism, and with a case study of then and in Canada and some of the other case study in Himachal. So uh, with the growth of civilization, with the coming of industrialization, we have known that there are a number of impact because of our the own growth of civilization, for our own benefit. We never think uh, that limitation of our interaction with the society, interaction with nature, so that have become a negative consequences to ourselves, not only to the that natural environment. So in that way, the concept of environmentalism started as a social movement. Then you will find out those concepts and those case study of tribal movement and how local movement play an important role in global that politics or global environmentalism. In Unit 4, you will have a look into what are the impact of development in modern society from the beginning, from the industrialization. So when we have overall objective of this course, this particular, block. But the question remain with us is that when we realize that resource and the society are closely related, and because of the resource consumption, the way we are utilizing the natural resources, it is how the society is grown. So those, I mean, with the concept whatever we are putting in the study material in that particular, this important, basically in this first two unit, how we can summarize? I can summarize this. We can summarize this in this uh, uh, graph. See, in this picture, we started with the coexistence with nature as a hunting society. That is how the birth of human being started. Then, and then in that time, we used raw material and agricultural product. It is followed by, development of irrigation techniques, from started establishment of settlements that we call as agrarian society. That means from hunting society to agrarian society, that basically, based on natural product. Then, with the coming of industrial product, then we started that we have industrialization because of the way human knowledge is advancing. So we have a lot of inventions and discoveries happen during those period, and that invention of steam locomotives and other ways of mass production started in this industrial society, the era of industrial society that was end in the, end of the 18th century. So in that time, we explicitly used technology and added more product than whatever available from the natural resources, in the sense that by utilizing that natural resources, we use another byproduct for our own utilization. Then now, because of then the another societies created what we call as information society. Yeah, you will find out, even if you look in India, since 1980s onward, you will see the computer that started that enter in our country, though it was started to enter, to establish that way of technology. They start in European country one decade back, then 1 decade earlier than our country. So this kind of means information society, uh, in that we try to utilize our knowledge and network, and sharing of knowledge is happen. Now it is in our, now in particularly in the century, from the beginning of, we can say, the latest from the beginning of the century, you can say, we have produced a number of knowledge, and you can see that this is a, if you look into that society number 5, means most of the academic look this way of progress, a way of growth of civilization, the era is society 5, super smart society. We'll see everything you will get in, you will get in your fingertips. Even, like the use of Alexa, Google Alexa. So this is how we are. The society is, evolving, and in the future, we don't know what kind of society we are going to have. Most of us understand from some of the science fiction movies that we imagine that we may have those kind of society where everything can be in front of you without moving from your the place you stay. On the other side, you will see that we will be surrounded by the pollution, number of environmental consequences, like air pollution will be very, dangerous. So that this is some of the important way of pollution we have to understand. So when we talk about sustainability, because when we discuss about the concept of sustainability from the beginning of this course as student of sustainability, we know that the sustainability is an objective of sustainable development is a method, and sustainability is the objective for the basic survival capacity of humans in society. In fact, sustainability of planet is the major objective of that. If you look into World Commission on Environment Development report, I will start from that only. We have a number of things has happened. We know that society, is grooming from hunter-gatherer to the knowledge that knowledge society to this society 5, as we call society 5, that is super smart society. And when we discuss about how the concept of sustainability was started, we realized that the concept of society, the concept of sustainability was not a new term, but if you look into this modern, the latest growth in this way of society, let us have a quick look from that the era of World Commission, from the start of World Commission on Environment Development report. In that, we'll find out the scope of global problems. We know every problems are there, and because of that problems, we have created another era of society, another society. That's why we reach up to super smart society, smart society. But if you look into the problems, and if you look into the World Commission on Environment Development report, and if you look those problems from the lens of sustainability, we'll find out that the scope of problem was centered on nature-society relationship. That's why we're talking about the social change from the perspective of, from the relation of resources, how resources influence growth of society, means social changes, right? Then, if you look into those reports of sustainability, not only World Commission on Environment Development report that we call EDGE or Common Future, even other report which is published by different institutions, you will find out the solution was seen as having to multi-dimensional way. That's why since United Nations Convention on Environment Development 1992, we are coming towards the direction of understanding the holistic approach of sustainability and then holistic approach of sustainable development to achieve sustainability. If you look those reports, you will find out whatever we are trying to achieve or we are trying to get sustainability is on the basic of human needs. But unfortunately, if you look into the basic human needs, which is defined by different reports on sustainability, even beginning from our World Commission Environment Development report, that was scaled down to only livelihoods. Even we were also discussing on that point. Because we're looking only that livelihood as a form. If you have livelihood, everything will get it. That is the principle. That is our understanding. So the point here I would like to say is that when we realize that thing, when we understand that the problems was because of the nature-society relationship, then if you look into any of the, especially in the reports of the United Nations Convention on Environment Development, some of the authors pointed out that we'll find out the word environment is mentioned several times, but the word society, the society or social is mentioned only a few times, 3 to 4 times. We're talking about multi-dimensional way of sustainability. We are talking about holistic approach to sustainable development. Unfortunately, it seems to us that sometimes we are not trying to understand the issues of sustainability from social perspective, right? Let us have a quick look into that. The reason is that when we understand that because of industrialization, one important point we have to understand why we need to understand that society, the social point of view, is a major dimension region is that when we realize that industrialization created a unique way of social growth or human growth, human civilization, and suddenly when there was growth of the industrial revolution, you will find out the way of that classification of classes of society, sudden change in classes of society in human civilization. That was not clearly, or that was not mentioned properly in those reports which focus on sustainability. So if you look into that the way of our industrialization started, how it was started, you can find out in global, you can find out two features that created a new buying class societies. One is Western capitalism. The another is the Soviet and Chinese version of state command. The reason is when we are talking about human nature society system, human nature society interaction system, it's a causes of your as a causes or as a problem, then that definitely talks about economic growth. Then economic growth, you can look that economic growth is brought by two important way of society that's we are going to look into. And those in this, particularly in this class society, in this class society, you will see those who are rich in terms of the amounts of the wealth, income, and the power, their control are likely to be less affected by unsustainability. Because in industrial society, we'll see labor class are producing, and the wealthy group of people, they are the owner of the resources. When something has happened, its unsustainability is there, those rich people, wealthy people, they are not going to directly impact on that. They have one or another alternative. So the first reason for that is resource inequality is itself a form of unsustainable development. How resource inequality happen? It is because of the, if you look from the social perspective, because of the growth. Human quest about the economic growth. So if you look for a sustainability as a means, it is not just that a social sense system can reproduce itself, but that it does so in a fair and just way. Means there should be equality. We know that wealth and abundance on one side and poverty and lack on the other side are an expression of fundamental social mismatch in society. This reflects that because of resource inequality, it is happening. So when we say there's sustainability, there should not be in one side you have a group of people that have an abundance of wealth. In another side, no, there are the extreme poverty that will not match a sense of a sustainable planet. Then the other point we need to understand is those controlling that have significant amounts of money, influence, reputation, and social relation, they are easily and they can easily escape that unsustainable living condition by changing their place. For example, if climate change is happening, those wealthy people who used to stay in the lowland area, and if the sea levels increase, they can easily move one place to another. So we have to understand these two important points. So we cannot achieve sustainability if we do not understand the social structure, how social structure is created. So in that point, what most of the sociologists talking about is when we are talking about sustainability, any of the report, including World Commission on Environment Development, they sometimes forget or do not mention about the issues of that class and capitalism is one of the reasons behind unsustainability. What happened to Western capitalism? If you look into Western capitalism, a capitalist class control wealth and ownership of resources from which ordinary people are excluded. That is what we have seen. Even nowadays in our country, from the almost last 4-5 decades, this phenomenon is, well, it will be evidence this kind of phenomenon across the country. Then another model, the Soviet and the Chinese model. There, a class of party bureaucrats who enjoy social privileges inaccessible to ordinary people control the economy and politics. That is very, as you know, everybody is, well, nowadays, because of we are in a society of super smart society, I don't think so. We do not aware about this. We all are aware about this. So these both models of societies share the features that the mass of ordinary people produces use values that do not directly control in terms of ownership and decision making. They are model of class societies. So this we have to understand. Okay. How you can understand all this? So let us have a quick look into some of the examples. Also, before looking into that, well-known sociologists, German sociologist Ulrich Beck, those from social science background, they know better than us that he published a book in Germany in 1986 that was released in English in 1992 as Rich Society Towards a New Modernity. In that, he says that individualization, education, mobility, and competition would have brought about an individualized, self-reflexive rich society. Then it created another: race, skin, color, gender, ethnicity, age, homosexuality, physical disabilities would have become more important than class. This is actually happening in this world of that globalization. It is happening. Again, creates a risk. So in the risk society, risk perception and risk management in all sectors of society become a new source of conflict and social formation. That's if you look into, if you don't look into, even I looked at climate change and all these things as a kind of that social issues. Yeah, we have seen that. So at the center lie the risks and the consequences of modernization. We should understand this point. At the center lie the risks and the consequences of modernization, which are irreversible to the life of plants, animals, and human beings. So there is a striking parallel between Beck's dismissal, what he says, of class and the class and capitalism blindness sustainability concept. So when we talk about sustainability concept, we know that how unsustainability was happened, it was because of capitalism. And what kind of class or society created by capitalism, we never bothered about it. So we have to understand that also as a sociologist or as a sustainability expert. If you look, for example, if you look those facts and figure in Global Wealth Report 2014 that is published by CSRI, and you will see the world reaches 10% on 87% of the global wealth. So you have understanding that how much disparity of the society exists. It's, I told you, as you know, that in one side we have wealthiest people that accumulate a big amount, enough amount of wealth. On the other side, extreme poverty, even they do not have a single meal in their hand. So the richest 1% own 48.2%, and the bottom half own less than 1%. This is the scenario. So in that report is also, found that 69.8% of the world population own a wealth of less than $10,000 and 0.7% more than $1 million. So in the next year, 2015, this year, those owning less than $10,000 increased to 71. Means the clause lower, in terms of resource own, the lower class of people is increasing, and the share of those having more than $1 million remain constant. In the on side means they are constant. Those who are very rich, they are constant, but those poor, if you compare to those richest person, compared to them, the inferior group, their number is increasing. So most of you, I'm sure you know about that Gini coefficient, and it's 0.915, which is very high level. So income inequality, it is one of the important indicators of understanding that society, disparity in society in terms of income. So in this same study, it's also found that in the year from 2007 to 2014, wealth inequalities rose in 35 countries, fell in only 11. Means increasing, richer has become rich. Let us have a quick look into, see, in 2007, 56.1% was share of the richest was there, but that is, I mean, increased into 64 in China. So these are the figures. You look, it was 65.3%, and it is increased to 73.3% in Egypt, right? So this shows that that disparity is in income is one of the factors we have to understand, and that is a threat to our sustainability. That's why we are talking about consumptive lifestyle. Okay. So the mass ordinary people produces the goods that sustain existence of humans in society and the social relations that enable governed reproducibility life in society. On the other hand, the elite group, those own so much, few people which are owning almost 50% of the world wealth, the controls and accumulate vast amounts of money, that's economic capital, that take the power, that decision that we call as political capital, the influence and the reputation, the influence and that is their reputation, that cultural capital, everything is in their own hand. So modern society laws of accumulation creates a class structure that is missing in our sustainability report that we have to understand. Who is the mass of the producers of economic, political, cultural capital are kept poor by not being able to control structures they create and that enable society's reproduction, right? So these inequalities are built into the laws of accumulation on which modern society is built. And it is one of the reasons why we're having so much unsustainability. So when we look into the concept of sustainability in different reports, you will find out that in itself, even World Commission on Environment Development report, you will find out it focuses on environmental, but it has become multidimensionality. If you look from World Commission, United Nations Convention on Environment Development onward, we realize that it major focus with its, different organizations, they started to work towards the multidimensionality, means holistic approach of sustainability. That's why we are having Agenda 21, we are having that Millennium Development Goals, we are having Sustainable Development Goal. But the question is, has this multidimensionality also resulted in a focus towards class and capitalism? Of course, it is happening. We have divide of developed and developing country, divide of developing and underdeveloped country. So the sustainability concept ideological characteristics has to do with the fact that just like the concept of the network society, what we're talking about, it sounds immensely positive and allows diverse groups that have opposing interests to project their political goals into it. That's we have seen what was happening in USA that 1 year back when we were talking about that climate change protocols, Kyoto protocols and others. So who in his or her right mind would be against sustainability? Because that few groups of people, small percentage of people who own larger amount of the wealth of the world is dependent. It is because of it goes on their will. Does this means we have to drop sustainability concept from a critical theory of society because of ideological characters? No. So let's try, let us look into what is critical theory. Because this critical theory, those from social science, they know it, that critical theory concept of sustainability needs to be understood. The critical theory is a term that theory is based on at the Frankfurt Institute for Social Research that introduced in the year 1920s and 1930s. In a general understanding, critical theory has been influenced by the work of Karl Marx and tries to understand the role of power, domination, and exploitation in society by investigating contradiction, structures, practices, ideologies, relation, and political practice. So the implication of this insight for a critical theory for sustainability is that society's unsustainability is grounded in global capitalism destructive. That was happening, as you know, dominative, exploitative, and exclusionary characters which interact with specific form of domination such as patriarchy, racism, nationalism, bureaucracy, destructive industrialism, etc. All this has happened because of this global capitalism, that domination, what has happened during colonialism. This is the reason. This is the reason why we're having environment destruction and sustainability. So all these forms are of instrumental reason. How it is? Let us take a quick look. That's why we need to understand the dialectical regions of sustainability. So if you look into critical theory, that entire society is basically based on two dialectic regions. The dialectic region is, as you know, is opposed to instrumental region, which it is as reducing the complexity of the world and society to one dimension only. A dialectic is a contradictory relationship between two entities. They are simultaneously are identical and different, as we discussed. No, in one side you see that okay, we are doing all right, and if you look delve into that, it is opposite that. So they require and exclude each other. So dialectic logic challenges classical binary reductionist thought. It questions the reduction of the world to just one dimension. It is, however, not just relational and multidimensional, but also sees the world as being in flux and development. So development potentialities emerge from poles that contradict each other. That's you have seen. So at a certain level of organization, everything constantly develops. There are also, however, more continuous processes that only change at specific critical points. So dialectical development includes situation of crisis and change, and the emergence of novelty at such critical points. There are two basic forms of dialectic. One has to do with the very basic condition and the basic development society. For example, there is a social dialectic between human beings. In order to exist, humans have to communicate with each other. They are different individuals, but can only inform themselves by mutualistic symbolic interaction. The second form of societal dialectic has to do with power relation. That's why we're talking about the powerful peoples. That's why when we talk about sustainability, when we are talking about all this global effort, and if you look from that sociological point of view, it is more dialectic. So in a power dialectic, we find conflicting interests and conflicting structure. So a critical dialectical theory of society is well suited as a framework for theorizing unsustainability or theorizing sustainability. So that's we have to understand. Some of the most of the authors that relate those the dialectic that is this particularly dialectical theory of society. First, some authors group of authors, they have acknowledged the importance of Marx works through the towards this direction. That's why, like Hollow et al., they argue that the critical tradition that goes back to Marx allows us to address the structure in which conventional sustainable development discourse takes place, and the question the opening of countless local community global markets, right? Let us try to understand this. And the modern vision of a one world system based on expansion of Western culture and capitalism. So, in the names of improving your livelihood, we open in this way: globalization, global market, one world. What has happened? It is a Western culture propagation, preaching of Western culture and capitalism. and consequences as we know. That's why everybody dreamed about a poorest of the poor. They also dream about, I want to live in that kind of environment where that white collars of people's or Western style of life, they want to, live in that world. And authors like Hubert et al. Argued that in sustainability discourse, the works of Marx and Engels, you talk about Engels' coefficient and others, have had influence on eco-socialist thinking, which is a specific form of transformatory approach to sustainable development. And few of authors like O'Connor, Foster, and Futz are among those authors who have explored the relationship of capitalism and nature based on Marx, right? This is very important. We have to understand that this kind of such kind of theories, if we are looking for sustainability, achieving sustainability, right? The second, some of the authors in the tradition of Frankfurt School ideology critique have argued that sustainability is an ideology, right? This also you can tag that as ideology. Like sustainability is a dominant ideological gaze of capitalist mode of production. You try to understand how globalization, why we are implementing globalization, and what is the negative impact of these. In one side, okay, we are improving that livelihood, but in other side, happening the negative side of that is they're talking about. Third one is Habermas's theory that argues that allows us to understand how capitalism colonized nature and society, so that much wealth is created in ways that undermine sustainability. This is happening as we are repeatedly discussing about colonialism and others. So they're looking for those destruction of environment from the points of the social theory of theories like Habermas, Marx theories, and others. So this such kind of circumstances that society is part of nature. As you know, whatever happening is that we have to understand society is a part of nature, but at the same time, a sublation of nature allows specific analytical attention to be given to the ecological system as a part of society. Point is that we have to take that society is a part of nature. On the other again, nature should also take a part of society. But nature is larger than society. There are parts of as part of it, and we are not much explored again. When we talk about biodiversity, species, and all these things, we know that we are yet to explore more species. So, however, the part of nature that stands in metabolism with human is a part of society. So, that's we call it social metabolism. We have to understand this. That is a part of social metabolism that is due to this nature-society interaction, and there are difference from one country to another. The way of social metabolism is also different. So, at the same time, nature is at the same time part and not part of society, right? That's we are talking about that dialectical nature. The political system is the realm of society where humans deliberate on or struggle about the distribution decision point society. Then coming to the culture that is coming to the culture in the sense when we're talking about decision power in society, then this has become one of the culture. On the other side, the culture is a realm of recreation of human body and mind in such a way that meanings, identities, and values emerge and renegotiated in everyday life. It includes aspects of society such as the mass media, science, education, the arts, ethics, healthcare, and medicine, sports, entertainment, and personal relation. Right. So, through this, the nature is sometimes part of society and not part of society. Then we are, quest about the powers in society to make the decision, and culture is a part of that to question about the power is part of culture. On the other hand, we have different cultures created like mass media. And if you look all these things, they are interconnection in the social system. So in a social system, human enters into social relation. That's why we're talking about the power and institution, everything, in which they make meaning of each other and their practices produce and reproduce specific social structure that enable and constrain individual thoughts and individual action, and further social practices that again produce and reproduce social structure, and so on, and that infinitum never end. So that's why we don't know next what kind of society. Now we are in a smart society. In next, what kind of society we are going to exist, we don't know. So a social system is a dialectic of social practices and social structure. So, social practices and social structures, these two are also interrelated, interlinked. This cannot be isolated. So society's dialectic is that it is just as society itself produces man as a man, so is society produced by him. So in that way, what we're talking about, that system, this like in this interaction between ourselves in the society. So in that, communication plays a very basic role in social system. It is the means by which humans relate to each other symbolically and establish and produce social relations. So a social system exists as long as the structure agency dialectic is organized regularly via communication in time and space. Now comes time and space, right? So spatio-temporal also important. Without communication and social dialectic, there can be no social system. So a social system, therefore, ceases to exist when its dynamic comes to an end. Why we are talking about all these things? Nature-society interaction is dynamic. So sustainability has to look from dynamic point of view. This is the dialectic struck in agents in society based on first, here. So all social system, and so from that, then again we realize that all social systems have an economic, political, and cultural dimension, right? So all system use resources, take decision, and produce meaning. In this process, as we know, in this process of that users of resource taking decision and produce meanings, we have class of society. So depending on the social system and social role that human have in it, one of these dimensions can be primarily allows us to distinguish between economic, political, and cultural system. So in these modern societies, you will see that companies and the markets belong to economic system. You look how suddenly from our hunter-gatherer to the growth of human civilization, that is modern society, super smart society, from industrial society to now we are in that super smart society. Here, what is economic system? Companies and markets, state parliament, political parties and protest movement to the political system, university, religions, libraries, museum, the mass media, hospital, leisure club, and families to the cultural system. So this economic system, the political and cultural system are society's subsystem. Each of these three systems consists of the network of interaction between all humans and between all social systems that orient their communication and their social dialectic primarily on the production or reproduction of specific social structure. You can look into this figure, how nature, technology, society, and dialectic way of that social system, how it is related to this. So that's why in modern society, you will see modern society is a society formation that is based on the accumulation of economic, political, and cultural capital. It is basically based on structure that take on the form of capital that is accumulated. Everybody talks about accumulation of wealth. That's like a capitalist society that is based on the laws of accumulation. Natural resources are the physical body of commodities. Economic property is organized as commodities and capital. Collective decision take on the form of laws and policies, and collective definitions and meanings are worldviews, knowledge and ideologies that provide status and reputation, right? What I want to say in this, here also the accumulation of various forms of capitalism shows that modern society is based on logical instrumentalization. Say, here what I'm going to share is that we're talking about that improvement of livelihood improvement, and we're talking about that changing our lifestyle. But if you look into the system we exist, one world, one world or globalization, who is taking the responsibility, who is taking the decision, that it is in front of us. If you look into the global politics also, you have seen that those developed countries, they are taking important decisions, right? That is reflecting here. So that's why we need a sustainable transition. How sustainable the transition has to look, because we know that the concept of sustainability or the way of sustainability we're talking have dialectic nature. When we have that dialectic nature of society and sustainability, we need to think in a globalized world, we need to think in a sustainable transition. Since sustainability no longer means identification of and subordination to ecological limits and imperative, but it is an inherently open principle that frames the debate on the kind of nature and society we wish to have. That is our objective. Sustainable planet. We wish to have such kind of society where we have a harmonious relation uh, of nature society. So people are more than ever nowadays, people are in this super smart society. We have more than ever well aware of the social and ecological implication of their lifestyle, but their commitment to these values and lifestyle is at least as strong as commitment to environment and egalitarian values resonating uh, from tradition of first order emancipation and reflection modernity. We are emancipated. So this distinctive feature of the new eco-politics is the coincidence of an unprecedented level of scientific understanding and public awareness of the social and ecological implication of modern lifestyles and pattern of self-realization, and an equally unprecedented determination to define and further develop all these values, lifestyles, emancipatory achievements. Right? So sustainability, in this way, sustainable transition can be regarded as multidimensional and co-evolutionary processes that involve change in technology, user practices, business models, policies and governance approaches, and cultural meanings. So this transition process consequently involves long-term fundamental change in social system towards more sustainable modes of production, consumption, and living. So here we should not forget the role of technology in sustainable development and its potential for reducing the stress of development process on environment. The problem is the incremental improvement of problematic technology, it would not be sufficient to overcome pressing global sustainable challenges, because technology also have some limitation. Instead, more effective radical innovation we are needed, requiring not only novel technology, but also change user practices. For example, we will change our consumption style, new institution, regulation, and other improvement like infrastructure is required for transition and sustainable transition. So the theoretical foundation contribute to understanding technological development is dynamically interconnected with societal development and environmental consequences. Based on this, the central idea of interconnected subsystems, sustainable transition research established a very effective. I'm looking into the history, evolution of sustainable transition research across the globe, which institutionalized with the foundation of Sustainability Transition Research Network at the first European Conference on Sustainability Transition in Amsterdam in 2009, and at the launch of the Environmental Innovation Society Transition Journals in 2011. Other stream of research in other terms have been established in parallel to this STRN school. One of them is Transformation to Sustainability, which takes on a somewhat broader view by considering systemic relation between social and natural system. So a prominent global research platform, this community is Future It Earth. and I'm sure you must have known about Future Earth, that created during the UN Conference on Sustainable Development, that is Rio Plus 20 in 2012. It aims at creating and connecting new knowledge on global change and developing and implementing transformation to prosperous and equitable futures. Three basic transitions which we need to look for a sustainable transition. One is socio-technical transition. The second was socio-institutional and socio-economic transition, and socio-ecological transition, or we can say socio-economic system, socio-ecological system, not socio-economic, it is a socio-ecological system. So in case of socio-technical transition, which can be defined as a configuration of product, process, services, and its infrastructures, regulations, skills, preference, expectation, and actors. For example, producers, suppliers, policymakers, users that fulfill societal needs such as energy, food, or mobility provision. So the environmental problems created, for example, if you look that transition, for example, the environmental problems created by cars, for example, cannot be tackled without regarding and potentially reconfiguring the whole socio-technical system of road transportation, including industry structure, market and user practices, road network, fuel station, maintenance workshop, the cultural meanings of cars and policies. Means you have to understand that society and technology relation, that's why we're talking about multidimensional. Only technology cannot achieve your and a society you wish to live. So the second one, socio-institutional and socio-economic transition, that integrate strengths of institution and theory to enhance conceptualization of cultures, structure and practices, contributing to or inhibiting transition to sustainable development. So the exploration of socio-institutional change process, this process facilitated more detailed analysis of the core characteristic and behavior pattern of actors, that here we're talking about actors, or how and why certain practices emerge and diffuse by shifting attention higher order principles such as rules, norms, and cultures, right? So socioeconomic sustainable transition approaches mainly prompted by the recognition of societal minority that the prevailing paradigm of economic growth in industrialized economy. That's also very important. We have to understand is increasingly compromising social well-being in intact ecosystem, right? So, but instead of complete discarding capitalism and associated values of freedom and democracy, tendencies can be observed towards reforming some of the inherited mechanism of, like we are looking towards bio-based economy, circular economy, green economy, or decoupling economic growth from environment degradation. So several social innovations are in front of us, like we have that eco-villages, and then consumption also sharing, then spending time means basic income, and these are some of the things what we have seen in front of us. And the third one, another transition we have to look into is socio-ecological transition or socio-ecological system that emphasize dynamic interconnection, interdependence between human and natural environment. That we have already known, but now in this super smart society, sometimes we talk that Professor Swaminathan used to say, to this generation of children, they have one syndrome, nature deficit syndrome, which that shows that everything you have seen virtual. So here we have to understand the socio-ecological transition is important. Some of the four systemic components has to be understood. One is the resource system, then under resource units, the users of the system, and the governance system, while also taking into account the socioeconomic, political, and ecological setting in which they are embedded. That all everything we are looking from or within planetary boundaries and global resilience, right? That's all about. That's what we are trying to understand today, is that when we are talking about sustainability, which is not a new term, if we look from how sustainability, concept of sustainability was started, but if you look into what we are looking is if the issues of unsustainable was started because of the capitalist nature that is created by industrialization. But when we are trying to find out a way, when we started global effort of sustainable development. If you look into any of the reports, if you look into any of the, the paradigms, if they have recommended, you will see that we look towards a way of towards more ecological thing. We sometimes avoid the major issues of capitalism and all these things. It was not properly, it's not properly giving attention. That's why multidimensionality is also important, what we are talking about, and we need to understand that dialectical, that characteristic of the sustainability, and now we need for a transition, sustainable transition, where everybody is well aware about it. Thank you.